You ever shut your door just to think, and suddenly someone knocks and says, "What are you hiding?" I'm not hiding anything. I just need space. Space to breathe. Space to exist without feeling like every second of my life is being watched or judged. I'm not trying to push anyone away. I'm just trying to understand myself. Sometimes people don't get that. They think privacy means distance. But for me, it means survival. My name doesn't really matter. I'm just one of millions of teens who find peace behind a closed door. And if you've ever felt like your room was the only place where your thoughts made sense, then yeah, this story's about you too. My day usually starts with noise. Not the soft kind of noise that gently wakes you up, but the kind that shakes your thoughts apart. Mom shouting from the kitchen, my little sister arguing about her hair, the TV blaring news that no one really listens to. I try to focus, but it's like my brain is on overload before I even brush my teeth. And that's why I love my room. It's not just four walls and a bed. It's my reset button. When I close the door, I can finally hear myself think. I can breathe again. People think teenagers are obsessed with their phones or with social media, but honestly, sometimes I just want silence. I sit on my bed, stare at the ceiling, and let my brain slow down from the storm outside. That's my version of peace. That's my version of me time. But try explaining that to your parents. Last week, my mom said, "You're always in your room. Why can't you just sit with us for once?" I want to tell her, "Mom, I'm with you all day, in school, in the car, in conversations I don't even feel ready for. I just need to be alone for a while." But saying that out loud feels like picking a fight, so I just smiled, nodded, and went back upstairs. It's not that I don't love my family. I do. But loving someone doesn't mean you have to be around them every second. Sometimes love means giving space, enough room to breathe, think, and figure out who you are. There are moments when I sit alone and just think about school, about how everything feels like a race, grades, friends, expectations. One bad day, and suddenly everyone's asking, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing's wrong. I just need time to store my thoughts. And my room is the only place that lets me do that without judgment. When I'm there, I can laugh, cry, be confused, whatever I need to be. No one asks why. No one interrupts. That's not isolation. That's healing. Sometimes I put on music, not the kind blasting through headphones, just soft background noise that makes my thoughts easier to handle. A song can make me remember things I forgot, or help me let go of things I held too long. Like last night, I played an old playlist from middle school. It reminded me how much I've changed, how much I've learned to hide behind smiles, because showing sadness makes people uncomfortable. I looked around my room and realized it's the only space that knows every version of me. The loud me, the tired me, the angry me, the real me. That's why I need it. That's why every teenager needs it. Sometimes I wonder if adults forget what it felt like to be young. Maybe they don't remember that weird feeling of being trapped between childhood and adulthood, where you're supposed to act mature, but still feel lost half the time. When my parents knock on my door, they see a teenager trying to hide. But what they don't see is the person inside, trying to build themselves piece by piece. Every quiet moment in my room isn't loneliness, it's self-connection. Every closed door isn't rejection, it's reflection. I wish more people understood that. My private time doesn't mean I'm disconnected. It means I'm recharging. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So when I come out, I can be a better version of myself, a little calmer, a little kinder, a little more patient. Privacy isn't rebellion, it's balance. And for teenagers like me, it's not just important, it's necessary. Sometimes I think my parents see my closed door as a wall. To them, it's like I'm shutting them out. But to me, that door isn't about keeping them away. It's about keeping myself together. The world outside that door can be loud. Not just the kind of loud you hear, but the kind that lives inside your head. Teachers asking for deadlines. Friends sending mixed signals. People expecting you to have your future all figured out when you're still trying to figure out who you even are. When I close my door, it's not rebellion. It's peace. And yet, every time I do it, someone says, "You're spending too much time alone." But how do I explain that being alone is the only time I don't have to pretend? The truth is, life as a teenager feels like a performance sometimes. At school, you act confident even when you're scared. Online, you act happy even when you feel empty. Around adults, you act mature even when you just want to cry. My room is the one place where the mask comes off, where I don't have to be the smart student or the good kid or the fun friend. I can just exist. I can stare out the window and think about life. I can lay on my bed and listen to the rain hit the glass. I can talk to myself without worrying someone's listening. That's not being distant. That's being real. One night, my dad knocked on my door. He asked if I was okay because I hadn't come out all evening. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sad or angry. I was just thinking. But adults sometimes think thinking means something's wrong. He looked at me and said, "You know, when I was your age, we didn't lock ourselves in our rooms. We went out, talked to family, helped around the house." And I just nodded because what could I say? The world he grew up in isn't the world I live in. Back then, there was no social media comparing you to everyone else. No pressure to post, to perform, to pretend. Now, even silence feels like a competition. So when I close my door, I'm not being lazy or rude. I'm detoxing from all of it. There's a certain peace in hearing your own heartbeat, in sitting quietly while everyone else rushes around, in writing things you'll never show anyone, just to let the feelings out. Sometimes I write letters to people I'll never send. Sometimes I talk to my reflection like it's another version of me who understands. It sounds weird, but it helps. That's what privacy is. It's healing time. It's when you untangle all the thoughts that get stuck in your mind all day. When people ask, why do teens need privacy? I want to tell them, because we're growing, because our minds are crowded, because everything feels so heavy sometimes, and we just need a place to set it down. We don't hide because we're bad. We hide because we're learning how to face the world again. again. Last month, I had a fight with my best friend. It wasn't even something big, just a misunderstanding, but it stuck with me. I kept replaying it in my head, wondering if I said something wrong, if I was a bad person. That night, I went to my room, turned off the lights, and just sat there. No phone, no music, just me and my thoughts. At first, it felt lonely, but after a while, it started to feel calm, because I realized silence doesn't have to be scary. In that quiet, I forgave myself, and when I saw my friend the next day, I was able to talk without anger, without pretending. That moment wouldn't have happened without my private time. Privacy teaches you self-control. It teaches you emotional balance. It teaches you how to listen to yourself before listening to everyone else. It's not just about having a room, that it's about having a safe space in your mind. When I'm in my room, I feel safe enough to fall apart and strong enough to build myself back up. Sometimes I wish parents could experience that feeling again, the comfort of being alone, not because you're sad, but because you're discovering who you are. If they could remember that, maybe they'd stop seeing closed doors as a threat and start seeing them as part of growing up. Every teenager deserves a corner of the world that belongs only to them. A space where thoughts can breathe, where hearts can rest, and where minds can grow without pressure. My room is that place for me, and maybe that's all I really need sometimes, just a little quiet time to find myself again. It's strange how a simple thing like closing a door can mean so many different things. For me, it's comfort. For my parents, it's distance. We live in the same house, but sometimes it feels like we live in different worlds. They see my quietness as attitude, my headphones as isolation, my need for privacy as rebellion. But if only they could step into my shoes for one day, just one, they'd understand it's none of those things. It's survival. There are days when everything feels too much. The pressure to do well in school, the fear of disappointing people, the feeling that one small mistake can make everyone think less of you. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is shouting, and the only way to hear yourself is to escape into silence. That's what my room gives me. Silence. When I'm in there, I don't have to explain why I'm tired. I don't have to fake a smile when I'm not okay. I can just sit, breathe, and let the noise fade. But parents don't always see that part. They see the door close and think, what's wrong with my child? They don't realize nothing's wrong. I'm just trying to reset before I break down. One evening, I overheard my mom talking to my dad in the kitchen. She said, he used to tell me everything. Now he barely speaks. I miss him. Hearing that hurt. Because I missed her too. I miss the days when I could talk freely without worrying about being judged or misunderstood. But somewhere along the way, I stopped sharing. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't want to worry them. They already had enough stress. And sometimes, parents don't realize how heavy their expectations can feel. I love them. I really do. But sometimes love means keeping things inside. Not because you want to lie, but because you want peace. There was a time when I tried explaining why I like being alone. I said, it helps me think. Mom said, but what are you thinking about all the time? And that's when I realized they don't get it. I'm thinking about life, about the future, about who I am, about what kind of person I want to be. These aren't questions someone else can answer for me. And that's why privacy matters so much. It gives you space to explore yourself without anyone watching, judging, or interrupting. You can't grow when someone's constantly telling you who to be. Sometimes I just sit in the dark. No phone, no TV, no distractions. Just me, my thoughts, and a little bit of silence. It's not sadness. It's reflection. It's me understanding why I feel certain things, why some words hurt, why some days feel heavier than others. It's me learning how to be my own friend. Because one day, I'll have to face the world alone. And if I can't handle being with myself now, how will I do it later? I think that's what a lot of adults forget. Privacy isn't about hiding. It's about growing. It's about learning to be your own safe place before you rely on anyone else. And maybe if parents saw it that way, they'd stop worrying so much. Because trust me, most teens aren't using their privacy to do bad things. We use it to think, to rest, to recharge, to be real. The world outside is demanding enough. We just need a corner of it that feels ours. There's something powerful about shutting your door and hearing nothing but your own breathing. You start noticing the small things, the sound of the fan, the smell of your blanket, the rhythm of your heartbeat. And suddenly, everything feels still. That's the moment your thoughts become clear. You remember who you are without the noise, without the expectations, without the pressure to be perfect. In that silence, you meet yourself again. And maybe that's the whole point of growing up, learning to meet yourself over and over until you finally understand who you are. If I could tell parents one thing, it would be this: don't fear your child's silence. Don't fear the closed door. Sometimes the quietest moments are when the loudest healing happens. Privacy doesn't mean we're drifting apart. It means we're finding our way back to ourselves. When I finally step out of my room after some quiet time, I'm not ignoring anyone. I'm just calmer. My thoughts make more sense. My voice is steadier. That's what private time does. It doesn't separate families. It saves them. Because when a person learns to handle their emotions privately, they communicate better publicly. We don't shut the door to hide from love. We shut it to protect it. The night I really understood what privacy meant wasn't a peaceful one. It was one of those nights where everything went wrong. I had a bad day at school, failed a test I studied all week for. Then I came home and my mom asked why my teacher called. I froze. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to be alone for a while to think. But instead, she took my silence as attitude. She said, why can't you just talk to me instead of running away to your room? And in that moment, something inside me cracked. I wanted to say, I'm not running away. I'm trying to hold myself together. But I didn't. I just walked upstairs, shut my door, and leaned against it. And when I finally sat on my bed, I cried quietly the way most teens do when no one's watching. Not because I was angry, but because I felt misunderstood. That night, my room wasn't just a place. It was a shelter. Privacy doesn't mean you hate people. It means you love yourself enough to know when to stop, when to rest, when to heal. In that quiet space, I learned something important. No one can really understand you until you understand yourself first. And understanding yourself takes time, reflection, and sometimes a few tears in the dark. That's the kind of learning you can't get in school. That's the kind of lesson only solitude can teach. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was shining through my window, and the air felt soft, like a small apology from the universe. I sat on the edge of my bed, thinking about my mom. She wasn't wrong to worry. She just didn't know how much noise was in my head. So I went downstairs, made myself some breakfast, and for the first time in a while, I sat beside her. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. Sometimes silence can say more than words ever could. After a few minutes, she looked at me and said, "I just miss talking to you, that's all." And I finally said, "I'm still here, Mom. I just need time sometimes. That doesn't mean I don't care." She nodded quietly, and in that moment, I saw something in her eyes, understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. That small conversation changed everything. She stopped knocking every 5 minutes when my door was closed. Instead, she'd knock once, smile, and say, "I'm here when you're ready." That small act made me feel trusted, because that's what privacy is built on, trust. When parents trust that you're okay on your own, it makes you want to open up more. But when they invade that space, it makes you hide deeper. And once trust breaks, it's hard to rebuild. That's something I wish more parents understood. Privacy doesn't push you apart. It actually builds connection. Because when you let someone breathe freely, they come back with honesty. When you let them close the door, they open their hearts. That's the truth. In the weeks that followed, I started noticing small changes. I wasn't snapping as much. I didn't feel so drained after school. Even my grades improved, not because I studied more, but because my mind was clearer. That's the power of private time. When your thoughts are calm, everything else starts falling into place. I began journaling just a few lines each night about how I felt. At first, it was messy. Angry words, confused emotions. But slowly, those words started making sense. I realized that being alone didn't make me lonely. It made me aware. It helped me see patterns in my thoughts. When I was stressed, what triggered my moods, what made me happy. That's when I learned to understand myself. I think privacy is like sunlight for the soul. Without it, you can't grow properly. You need that space to stretch, to think, to bloom into who you're meant to be. Every teen deserves that. Not because they're hiding something, but because they're discovering something. And discovery takes time, quiet, patient time. One evening, I sat in my room and looked around. My posters, my books, my desk cluttered with notes, all little pieces of me. Each thing held a memory, a thought, a version of who I was becoming. That's when I smiled and whispered to myself, "This room has seen every side of me, and it never judged." That's the kind of freedom privacy gives you. A place where you can be raw, imperfect, and still enough to listen to your own heartbeat. Privacy isn't isolation. It's introspection. And in today's world, where everyone's shouting online and pretending to be happy, learning to sit alone with your thoughts is the bravest thing you can do. It's how you find peace in a world that never stops talking. Sometimes when I'm lying in my bed at night, I can hear my mom in the living room. Her footsteps soft, her sighs heavy. I know she worries. Parents always do. But what they don't realize is that sometimes their kids worry too. About disappointing them, about not being enough, about growing up in a world that feels too loud, too fast, too full of expectations. My room became the only place where I could slow down time, where I could look at the mess of my thoughts and not feel judged. Sometimes I just stare at the ceiling fan spinning and think about nothing at all. Other times, I'd imagine my future, college, friends, a life of my own. It wasn't about hiding from my family. It was about learning who I was when no one was watching. One night, my dad knocked on my door. Not to scold, not to talk about homework, but just to sit. He didn't say much, just looked around, smiled a little, and said, "You've made this place your own, huh?" I nodded. He stayed for a bit, then said, "When I was your age, I used to sit in my room for hours, writing songs I never showed anyone." He laughed softly. Guess I needed that private time too. And that's when I realized maybe every generation goes through this same dance. Parents worry their kids are drifting away, and kids just need a moment to breathe. Private time isn't about pushing people out. It's about letting yourself in, because before we can connect deeply with others, we need to understand the voice inside our own mind. And for me, that voice, quiet, thoughtful, sometimes messy, lives right here in the stillness of my room.